Yeah, I'm just gonna drag people from their cars.
Yeah,
Isn't that what
no,
you said? Yeah.
no, don't do that.
Oh, don't. Oh, okay.
Yeah, don't do that. That was a negative. Yeah.
My goodness.
I think that's frowned upon.
I think it might be. While Don was doing the treatment, by the way, you know how sometimes on your computer or iPad it'll pop up a, a picture from the past on that same day. This is the picture that popped up. Let's see. I hope it comes through.
Oh, wow.
From 2011. Oh my gosh, she was so cute.
Wow.
All right, but that's not why we're here. Okay, well, we're here actually to talk about surrendering our smallness. And this is a great topic. It's a huge theme in life, obviously. It's huge on the spiritual journey. And it's a paradox in that we teach that we are each the microcosm of the macrocosm, that we have everything, all of everything in us, and yet we are also just one part of it. So our ego can tell us that we're everything, our fear can tell us we're nothing, but our soul, that authentic part of ourselves, will always tell us that we're whole. Joseph Campbell talked about the hero's journey. He summarized it into 17 steps that we undertake on our spiritual and, yes, human journey. We often start out thinking we're too small to make a difference in the world, that we're too damaged, that we're not enough. Heck, the world around us often tells us that. And through the journey of life, we learn that we're here to make a difference in our own world. And that in turn, when we make a difference in our own world, it changes the world around us. It's not by becoming perfect or super spiritual, perfect. It's by becoming who you truly are and revealing yourself to yourself and to others. And how we travel this journey is up to us. It's our own journey to take. And that journey for many of us is to discover how to let go of what keeps us small. And by small, I mean perhaps keeps us too afraid to take actions toward what you really want or what you feel is yours to do. Or maybe small might mean that you don't feel like you deserve it or that you're unworthy of it. That is a journey of surrendering the smallness we feel limited by, and by embracing and growing the unlimitedness more and more that is ours to do. External things don't do it. The three things that the world tells us will help us the most, that will help us to get the most authentic life, money, power, and fame, they don't do it. If we could just get more of one of those things, or all three of those things, we're told our lives will improve. I'm watching American Idol right now, and you just see how all the contestants, many of them will say, if I was just famous, if I was just this, if I was just that, and the world supports that and says, yeah, that's it. And if you get those things, then you're not going to feel small. But if that worked, then people with money or fame or power would all feel healed and happy and use their money compassionately. Some do, many do not. And that is because the world around us is like a mirror of what's happening within us. And things like money, fame, and power are just magnifying glasses, magnifying what's already there. So the more healed we are, the more those things can be positive. But paradoxically, the more healed we are, the more we surrender the smallness we feel, the less we rely on those things for our self-worth or the worth of others. So if we don't look to worldly success to find our joy, where do we find it? We know where, inside. Let me tell you a story. I love fairy tales and myths and legends and all of that. I think many of us do here. They're certainly all over the movies and books and TV shows. Even in spirituality, you can find them in books or things like tarot or Jungian psychology. I'm reading this book now called In the Ever After, Fairy Tales and the Second Half of Life by Alan Shannon. fairy tales unlock things for us. You know, they open ourselves up to deeper meanings through stories. And there's a wonderful old fairy tale from that master of fairy tales, Hans Christian Andersen. You know, he was the guy who wrote fairy tales like The Emperor's New Clothes, The Little Mermaid, The Ugly Duckling, The Little Match Girl, Thumbelina, many, many others. And there's one that's very interesting and that we can use as a metaphor for today's idea, and it is called The Princess and the Pea. I don't know how many of you know that one or familiar or even have thought of it in years, right? It's not as well known as some of the others, but it has been adapted many times over the years, including a revision of it that was called Once Upon a Mattress, which was done as a stage play on Broadway starring Carol Burnett. And it has since been revived a couple times. And other versions of The Princess and the Pea have also been adapted for television and film. And that Carol Burnett Broadway stage musical version was performed on television years and years ago, which is when I first saw it as a little kid. It's wonderful. You can go to, I think, YouTube or Google it, and you can still find it. It's worth watching. Anyway, the full fairy tale is a longer one, but I'm going to just skim it down to what we need for today. I'm going to do the Hans Christian Fotinos version of this tale. And in it, we have a handsome prince, of course. You know, I always think, who would I cast in these roles if I was going to make a movie of this? So we have a handsome princess. And of course, we have his parents, the king and the queen of this kingdom. And of course, we have a princess. Just to state this up front, when looking at this tale metaphysically, which we are, the prince represents maybe our heart or our loves, our desires, our passion. And the princess represents that kind of conscious you, that true, authentic self, the you that is you right here. And the queen in this tale usually is seen as representing kind of that inner critic, the saboteur, that voice within that not only tells us that we're small and unworthy, but also tries to find ways to keep us feeling that way. I sometimes think, though, that at least in this story, that maybe the queen in this story is sometimes wrongly vilified, that perhaps she represents our higher self that is protective and wants to make sure of the right match between who we are and what we desire in life. But either way, she plays a big role in this story. Now, the prince really wants to find a princess and get married. I mean, he really wants to find a princess. And by royal law, he has to marry a true princess. His mother, on the other hand, is very, very picky. In fact, you could say that she wants to keep princesses away from her son. Now, in some versions of the tale, they have all of the nearby princesses come for visits to find the right and true princess for the prince. And the queen has devised a series of questions that each of the princesses must answer. And the one princess who can answer all of the questions is going to be the right and true princess. So when princess comes, she can answer some of the questions, but the first time she gets a question wrong, she's sent away. The next princess comes, same thing happens, and so on until there really isn't a princess left in the nearby kingdoms. Until one day. It's always until one day, right? And on this one day, it happens to be storming outside. It's torrential rains. There's a downpour, and there's a knock at the castle door. They don't have those ring doorbells yet. And they open the castle door, or maybe they lift the thing, whatever they do, they see it's a woman, and she's totally drenched. Her makeup's running. I mean, she dressed all wrong for this journey, and she didn't even bring an umbrella. I mean, the weather app got it wrong that day, and there was no rain in the forecast. So she was surprised by the rain. Let's just put it that way, okay? Anyway, they were astonished to see her. And they were even more astonished when this woman with the dripping makeup and drenched clothes and all of that in her hair, when she says, "I'm a princess." Now, the queen thinks to herself, there is no way no way this girl is going to marry my sweet little prince. She thought, even if any one of those previous princesses would have been better for my little prince than this mess. Now, let me pause the story for a moment and say, remember, the princess in the story represents our authentic self, and she makes her entrance into the story as is. No airs, no pretensions. She isn't dressed to the nines with designer clothes and dripping with jewels. She just comes as is. And metaphysically, this means that while we may not realize it yet, we already are good enough. We already are worthy. Back to the story. The queen does not feel this way. And she figures the princess won't be able to answer even one of her questions. So she just chooses one and says it out loud. And she can't believe it when the princess answers the question really quickly. Well, the queen thought that was a lucky guess. So she asked another question, and the princess answers it. And another question, and she answers it. She goes through all of her questions and gets the very last one, the most impossible one that no one would ever know. Now, in that adaptation, Once Upon a Mattress, that question is this: what was the middle name of the daughter-in-law of the best friend of the blacksmith who forged the sword that killed the beast? As it happens, our princess happened to know the blacksmith and his family, good friends. And so therefore, she was good friends with the daughter-in-law of the blacksmith's best friend. And so she was uniquely able to answer this question easily. This did not go over well with the queen. She was out of questions. So she devised a fail-safe plan. She called her husband and son in and said, if this one is a real princess, let her sleep on a bed with a pea under the mattress. And if she has a good night's sleep, she's an imposter. No princess could do that. If the pea keeps her awake, then and only then we will know she is a true princess and can marry you, my dear prince. And she forbids the prince from revealing the plan to the princess. This is a fairy tale, doesn't maybe happen in real life, but you know. Now, this queen ain't playing. So when she goes to get the pea to put under the mattress, she gets the teeniest, tiniest little itty bitty pea and places it under the mattress. I don't know if it was a Lesueur. I don't know if it was a Del Monte, Green Giant. Don't know any brand. Might have been one that she plucked from outside in her garden. It's not important to the story. So moving on, she places it under the mattress. Then, just to be sure, she places a second mattress on top of that, just like insurance that the princess won't feel a thing. But then she thinks the princess has surprised me before, so she decides to add 18 more mattresses on top of those two. So now the smallest pea in the kingdom is hidden under 20 mattresses. The prince, seeing this and really, really, really wanting to marry this princess, decides to help out. So in the Hans Christian Fotinos version of this tale, what he does is he finds everything hard he can, like rocks and spears, wooden candlesticks, even one of those masks made out of steel that the knights wear, and he stuffs those 20 mattresses with all these pointy, uncomfortable, hard things so that the princess won't be able to sleep, thus proving to his mother that the queen is worthy to marry him. Okay, well, the princess is tired, as you can imagine. It's time to go to bed. And she goes into the room where the 20 mattresses are piled high, and she thinks, wow, this is one cuckoo little family. But she shrugs. She climbs the ladder that they put on the side of the bed because she had to use a ladder to get to the top of the 20 mattresses. She's exhausted, and she falls instantly asleep, only to be awakened almost as instantly because the mattress is lumpy. There's something inside the mattress that's poking her, and she cannot sleep. She tosses, she turns, all to no avail. Now, There is a long version of this story where we go through each one of the 20 mattresses one at a time. The long version's fun, but we got things we've got to do. So in essence, she takes the stuff out of the first mattresses, thinks that solves it. It's going to help her feel comfy and cozy and sleep. It doesn't. So she goes down to the next one, does the same thing, goes back up, falls asleep, has the same result, and so on 20 times. Now, metaphysically, you can see that this represents all of the things that have been put in our lives that we must remove one layer at a time. And by the way, if you sign up for the next Artist Way class based on this book, It's Never Too Late to Begin Again. That's one of the goals of that class as we go through those layers. It's really exciting. Class will be in late May or early June. Stay tuned. So the princess finally clears out all of the rocks, the helmet, the wooden candlesticks, everything, all the stuff from the 20 mattresses and things. Now I can finally go to sleep. She had missed somehow the little tiny pea. So she climbs the ladder, lays down, falls asleep, but instantly wakes up and tosses and turns again. By now, half the night has passed. And this last sleep is the worst of them all, even though she's cleaned out all those big hidden items in the mattress. The moon was setting, which meant that morning was just a few hours away. The princess thinks to herself, dang, this is the longest night ever, and I haven't even gotten a minute of sleep. She laid down and tried again to get a little bit of sleep before morning. Now, this princess is quite the person. She decides to give it one more try to find out what is under that darn mattress, keeping her from sleeping. So she goes down the ladder. She finally puts her hand underneath the bottommost mattress. She almost misses it because it's so small, but she feels that little pea. And she takes it out from the mattress and thinks, is this what's keeping me awake? And, look, the story doesn't say if she ate the pea or if she tossed it out the window or whatever. I tend to think she probably was hungry and ate it. That is not germane to this story. In any case, the pea was gone. The princess climbs back up the ladder, lays down, and she instantly falls into the most peaceful and wonderful sleep she has ever had. And what the princess didn't know is that the queen had been watching her throughout the night. I don't know how. I doubt they had those two-way mirrors back then, but maybe she was hiding behind a tapestry or something. However it happened, she was watching. And when she saw the princess remove the last of the items under the 20 mattresses, before she got to the pea part, she figured this is it. This is when the princess will fall asleep, even though the pea was still there. And if the pea was under the mattress at this point, it did not cause the princess to toss and turn. That was the signal to the queen that this was not the true princess or the prince. But that didn't happen. The queen saw that the pea was what was ultimately causing the princess to toss and turn more than ever before. And the queen had to admit to herself that this princess was the true princess. And when the princess woke up, she climbed on the ladder, got dressed in her now dry clothes. I think they had dry cleaned them overnight for her. And feeling refreshed and energized, she went down to meet the royals. The princess was surprised that the queen gave her blessing, and the prince and the princess got married and were allowed to live in their own castle. And of course, in true fairy tale style, they lived happily ever after. Well, until the queen decided to go live with them, but that's a different story. So in this story, the pea is the thing that keeps us small. And under the mattresses means under the conscious or our subconscious mind. We remove everything else we think is bothering us. We remove the big things that clearly prevent us from our happiness. But until we remove that part of us that keeps us, and we first have to discover it, and then remove that part of us that keeps us small and hidden underneath it all, only then, in our subconscious, only then will we be able to find peace. It's interesting in this story that it's like a dark night of the soul, isn't it? And I'm sure many of us have gone through that. And the final thing that she didn't remove, seemingly the littlest thing, was the thing that had the most effect on her sleep. When the queen finally removes it, the princess was, in a sense, seen for who she really was. She came into her princessdom. DLM. When we do the work of removing what we can, layer by layer, habit by habit, decision by decision, fear by fear, maybe person by person, we finally get down to that core thing, that P that holds so much power over us. And in that way, at that point, the P no longer torments us, it teaches us. The P is different for each of us, but it's usually something that isn't a surprise when it's revealed. It's the thing that has prevented us from feeling freedom in our lives, from feeling that we can't go beyond that ceiling of happiness. We may have several P's, by the way, and that's okay. When we get to that lowest layer, our inner queen, our inner critic, our inner protector can finally see we have come into our own. We are truly royal. True life isn't a fairy tale, but we can certainly learn from them. This is one version of a longer fairy tale, which has many interpretations, but I love how it reminds us of the power we already have. Like in many fairy tales and myths and legends, that princess could have had a good night's sleep if she had just removed the P first, but she had to discover it first. Just like Dorothy could have gone home at any point in The Wizard of Oz, she had all that power all the time. She just needed to learn how to use it. And Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, they were connected to the Force the whole time. Frodo Baggins in The Lord of the Rings, the littlest hobbit in the village, was the bravest and truest of them all. Isn't it interesting that this theme that we must dig deep within to find our power and authenticity, it's like everywhere. Maybe we all go through the process of discovering our inner power, and maybe we do it over and over again. Like the princess who discovers what causes her turmoil, we have to surrender the smallness that we carry in order to live the life of our dreams. When we surrender that smallness, it doesn't mean we surrender our limitations so we can get more money, fame, and power. Those things may come, but they're not what brings us peace and love. What it really means is that we surrender what no longer serves us, what doesn't reveal us for who we truly are, and what keeps us from our peace. And it's a process we might do over and over to keep revealing ourselves more and more. And so let's go within now to connect with that inner royal self. Let's go within now to connect with that greater energy so that we can release anything that holds us back. And we do connect right now to that macrocosm I mentioned at the beginning, that everything. We do connect right now to that energy that through which everything is created and grows. It is the energy of allness. And therefore, we are one with that energy. We are connected to everything through the energy of it all. It is one with us. And so therefore, in that place, I know now that we just release anything that comes to mind now as something, even something small, that keeps us from our wholeness, that keeps us from experiencing life in the way that we want. Whatever comes to mind right now, we release it. We bless it. We thank it for being a teacher. We say we no longer need it for this next part of the journey, which begins right here and right now. We're ready for the new, the greater understanding, the greater experience, the greater connection with that great energy, the energy of allness. So with that as our truth and our guide, we release all the smallness in our life and open ourselves up to the greatness of life itself, right here, right now. And we all say together, and so it is.